Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. I'm Alistair Mackenzie, and you should be able to see me now. Great. And we're a couple of minutes late because Dylan and I were talking and didn't realise what the time was, so we've only just realised and hit the button. This is a repeat attempt at something we were trying to do last week. The idea was we were going to talk about this new way of storytelling that Dylan Lowe has come up with. And with Dylan, while he was in Madrid at the Fitter travel trade show, and it just it didn't happen. I mean, you were online. You had a good connection. You think you were in a cafe or something when you were around the corner from the exhibition hall, and then it just suddenly died on you.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, to know that I only had about half an hour left until I have to go live, I did make a mad dash back to the venue, and only to have it continue to not work. So, sort of gone from there to having, given my laptop to a fellow member in the press room who actually had a Mac, whom the staff automatically assumed that because he has a Mac, he knows how to fix a Mac, and he ended up breaking my Wi-Fi altogether. So that not ended up well, unfortunately.
Well, these things happen, and they certainly happen with Hangouts, because they do require a certain amount of bandwidth and stable bandwidth. And I got into exactly the same kind of problems last week, at the beginning of last week, when I was out in Milan and tried to do a pop-up Hangout, and got halfway through it, and it just ran out because basically because my PAYG mobile 4G MiFi ran out. So that's just the way it goes. But we're on stable connections today, which is just as well, because if you watch regularly, then you'll know that my two semi-regular panelists, Mike Young, who tends to talk about destinations, and Malcolm Ginsberg, who's our aviation consultant, if you like, expert. Both of them are away at the moment. Malcolm's in Petra, I think, and Mike has gone back to his home territory, Louisiana, to do some more work on his Mike's Travel Guide to New Orleans. So they did both say send them an invite, because you never know, they might be near their laptops and near some Wi-Fi and might be able to join us. So I've done that, but I'm not really expecting them to come. So it's just as well you did arrive, Dylan. Let's, without further ado, get on to the subject in hand. It's called the Ripple Movement. See if you can explain exactly what it is.
Well, to summarize that in a couple of sentences, to start things off, I would describe it as a social anthropological experiment / documentation that is about basically visualizing the state of travel blogging as it is right now, and finding ways of having a group of travel bloggers to collaborate on a singular project whilst having retain the full creative freedom to go and conduct their own investigations about a specific topic that they can very much relate to. So in many instances, a lot of the projects that have been submitted to us are topics that are very personal to the travel blogger concerned. And so actually having them talk about these things and actually raise public awareness about that particular topic, which is very often a social issue of some sort, we believe that we can actually very much augment the message through a shared audience and having sort of a visual conceptualization of the journey live for a certain period of time. So essentially, this is a collaborative travel blogging project involving about 15 to 20 independent projects or investigations happening within a live stage of about 4 months. At the moment, we're looking at spanning between July and November, okay. And all of that will be charted out on a live map.
So anybody who wants to see this in action goes to one source, to one website, because all the bloggers and the participants in this, because they needn't necessarily be bloggers, they could be academics or anybody, I'm guessing.
At this stage, we're looking at sort of documenting the power of travel blogging. So specifically, we are looking at travel bloggers. But there are no stopping travel bloggers who would like to find out more about their specific topic to actually go and speak to people who are experts in those fields. So we've got different topics such as food, we've got expatism, we've got sign language. We've got architecture and all of those things. And, as much as we can say that we are the ones who are curious to see about it and we're experts in our field, which is travel documentation, travel reporting, I guess in that sense, yes, we will be interviewing academics, we'll be interviewing the experts in their field to find out more about those things.
Those will all be on the one site, on the ripplemovement.com. And when you talk about those individual things, or food or whatever, those are elements that are represented on the site, or are the main theme, and then under that there will be lots of different pieces of work.
I think it's a bit of both, actually. I mean, it's a one-stop portal for people to go and find out about this whole thing called the Ripple Movement, as well as the independent projects that are happening throughout the time span. So, one way to sort of think about it from a user experience point of view is, either you found out about the Ripple Movement project, or you found out about one particular blogger that you have been reading and following intently. And the person happens to be doing an independent project at a time. You may have found out from their social media, or their own blogs or anything like that. And so they decided they want to follow along, and they would go onto the Ripple Movement website and being able to see their journey being visualized on the map, graphics and different pinpoints, such as the current location and the content that's being generated by them. And through that, they may be curious enough to see what the other people are up to who are involved in the same project. So, they might see the one line, but the other lines caught their attention as well. So they probably would decide to go and check out the other ones, and inadvertently, they probably would decide to follow along the other ones too, because either their journeys, the bloggers themselves, or the topic they are documenting may have struck them a fancy in them. So that's how it would work.
You mentioned earlier that you had you've identified this period in the summer where you expect it to be running from a date to a date. So you see it as the Ripple Movement as a one-off project?
Absolutely not. For the time being, we decided that we're going to do it within a 4-month time span because we want to limit a time frame so that we actually have a more concise documentation of a very particular time period of what's happened. At the moment, what we are thinking about sort of for our long-term strategy is that as we move towards, say, the 2.0 and the 3.0, we're thinking about expanding the number of people involved in the project. We're expanding the time frame so that it encompasses a much longer period of time. And basically, obviously, the number of topics that are going to be documented will also augment in the process. And so we've decided on a time frame not because we specifically wanted to do it in the summer or in the winter, a particular season, but because we just happened to have thought that that would be the time when everything that we are working on in the background would be ready and in place. And basically the mechanism to track everybody would have been tested and to make sure that they would work smoothly. And so for the time being, yes, I mean this is kind of for practical reasons, this is as ambitious as we can get in terms of the time frame, but there's no stopping us from expanding the time frame, and also we are actually absolutely hoping to do that as well.
I want to come back to the we in a minute, but it's a difficult concept, I think, for people, not least me, to get their heads round. So if I paint me a picture, if I go to theripplemovement.com, let's say in June or August in the summer, click on that site. Not wishing to preempt things that you may or may not, irons you may or may not have in the fire, particular projects or pieces of work you may have in the fire. Can you paint me a picture of what it is I will actually see, or what I might see? Give me examples.
The first thing that you're going to see when you go on to the Ripple Movement website, assuming that you've actually gone onto the Ripple Movement landing page, the main page, going to be, by every means, the centerpiece of the entire project. So it's going to be constantly in flux. There will be new routes being charted out on a daily basis, from the 15 to 20 different people, travel bloggers or projecteers, and as they travel. And so that's going to be, it's all about the representation of, where they are spatially, as well as where they are in time.
So we'll see routes in. I mean, for example, if you were traveling and working on various projects, what I would see for you would be a line, maybe a color-coded line. Dylan is the purple line, and he was in Warsaw, and he's now going down to Istanbul. I'd see that, and I'd see points along that route where I can click on them and see something you've done, images or work or.
Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of the footprint aspect of it. So every single place that I've been to, there would be pinpoints, there will be icons along the way, where if you hover onto it, you'll be able to see the different icons representing the different types of content that's being generated from each place. So you'll probably see like a photo icon, so if you click on it, then it'll show you all the photos, all the images that are generated, not just specifically for my journey, but specifically where the photos feature. So there's very much a geotagging element to it, not just about my current location per se, or a specific status or anything like that, as per what's been done with apps like Foursquare or what Facebook has dabbled in as well, but actually the content that's being generated as well. So, and especially when we're talking about a group of travel bloggers, we're not specifically saying that we are going for travel writing. We're going for videographers, we're going for photographers, we're going for podcasters, people who are good at documenting things in the way that they're the most comfortable in. We would have a good range of different types of media as well. So, if you click on a particular icon that has a video icon in it, then you'll be able to see the video that's being generated, not just long sort of episodic sort of thing that you would find on YouTube, but maybe say like a Vine video, for instance, or somewhere that's been uploaded onto Instagram, or even just on Facebook on the people's pages.
And you can carry all those formats on the site, I mean, technically.
Yeah.
And on that map, are you in the way that you would with a Google map or anything else that we're used to, a Foursquare, be able to kind of zoom in? So the line we were talking about before that's showing Dylan's route down to Istanbul, along the way I can see there are some icons there. I can zoom in down to pretty much street level and then discover actually it's a little post about a particular place or something like that.
I think by the end of the day, there are other sort of complications that we do have to consider. I mean, there have been so many controversies that's being generated about the usage of Foursquare, for instance, where there's quite a lot of cases of geo-stalking involved in some cases. And you've got horror stories of some who's in a bar sort of being confronted by somebody who basically had told him, you shouldn't have checked in if you didn't want me to find you right here. And one of the big concerns.
Yeah, but the way around that is for it to purely be historical.
There's that too. I mean, that would sort of slightly take away sort of
live minus 24 hours.
Exactly. It's almost as if you're going back to your original principle and say, what, this is what we want to show you as the current locations of the projecteers at the time. But if we're going to generate a lag of some sort, say like a day or so, it's sort of it's almost as if you've been committing sort of a case of hypocrisy on it a little bit. So I think in terms of the zoom in function, yes, I think you're going to get to a point you'll be able to zoom in so much that you're going to just about be able to see, say, his current location in terms of the city he's in, or something like that. But there will be, in terms of actually giving an accurate location generated in terms of the content and say, you know, okay, I'm giving you the locations not because I want to show you exactly which, you know, hotel and which room I'm staying at so that you can come and find me at 11 o'clock in the evening. It's more of a case of, oh, so this is this cool cafe that I checked out that I really want, you know, my readers to go and revisit. And so in that sense, yes, I think that's going to be where the geotagging comes into play as well. But in terms of what we would actually decided to call the Ripple Movement magazine, where you'll actually have destination guides that'll be more geared towards that. There will be maps in there as well, where they'll have pinpoints of exactly where the recommended locale is going to be, and so you're going to be able to refine that afterwards. So yes, there's actually going to be a live map function going on, but on sort of the editorial side of things, there would be a not so live map, but that's kind of more for resource purposes, for people to go and say, you know, either to re-experience, sort of reenact the journey of the producteers, or basically if they decided to go to Istanbul, for instance, they'll be able to find all the kebab shops, say, that I found that I really would recommend to my readers. So in terms of that, yes.
And in terms of subject, then, quite broad, because we were talking earlier that it would probably have a kind of, it'd be issue-led, but if we're doing, you know, cafes in Istanbul, then that's pretty broad, basic travel stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's very much sort of two tiers, really, in that sense. As much as we want to make this into some kind of a resource for readers, so that they, you know, as a lot of travel bloggers have done and are continuing to do, a big part of the motivation of travel writing, travel journalism, is to provide resources for people to, in order for them to either replicate the experiences of the writer, or basically have an experience of their own when they visit.
To be a pilot book.
Exactly. So we will have an aspect of that in the magazine itself, but in terms of the content, very much of what the investigations, or how the investigations are going to be documented, are going to be outside of the Ripple Movement website. So everybody, once again, as I mentioned just now, where everybody, all the travel bloggers would have different means of documenting that they feel the most comfortable in, and they claim to have expertise in. So writing, photography, videography, they're not exclusively hosted on their own blogs. A lot of them are big, you know, YouTube stars themselves. A lot of them are quite huge on Instagram. Some people might have galleries in, you know, one of the photo hosting websites like SmugMug or, you know, 500 Pixels. And so everybody would have their primary method of documentation. Everybody would have that one platform that they would identify as the main place where they're going to document it. And it's not just an aspect of having that documented live and having the content uploaded live as you go along. Some people might elect to say, you know, write an ebook afterwards. Yeah. That would be their primary documentation. So with those things, they would be very subject specific. They will be very specific about their investigations. Even though,
we should probably say that this kind of speaks to the to one of the themes that came out of the Social Travel Summit last year. That you know, we use the word travel blogger actually to describe a whole range of things, and more people begin to understand that. But a travel blogger can be a Google Hangout on Air host, or an Instagrammer, or you know, a Pinterester, or a traditional blogger who writes, or just a photographer, or just a videographer, etc., etc., etc. And that's that. So when we talk about travel bloggers, that's what we mean, is the full gamut.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just looking at one of our members, for instance, Ninka Crook, as a lot of you would know from her travel blog, The Travel Tester. She's very much set herself as an expert in Pinterest.
A Pinterest girl.
You know, and she's now actually, you know, doing a lot of freelance work for other travel bloggers and companies on Pinterest marketing. And so, you know, from that perspective, she might be, say, enticed to entirely build her investigation around a means of revolutionizing Pinterest documentation, the very same way that some bloggers out there would have actually done, say, like a Pinterest chat. I mean, you can almost not envision that. You can almost not envision, say, like, a Pinterest live event the same way that you can envision, say, like a Google Hangout as a live event or a Twitter chat as a live event. But somebody have managed it. So in essence, everybody's coming up with new ideas of documenting that is existing beyond, the sort of the flagship platform per se.
And this is a way of aggregating them together. Who's it for? Is it for consumers? Is it for other
large sort of variety of people? I would say that it's for general public. It's for the people who would be interested. I mean, I'm looking at the general public in the sense that there are no such distinction between the people who are in the travel industry or people in the travel blogging industry or people, writers, journalists, anything like that. So basically anybody with a sense of curiosity. I would say that this is what it's for, in the sense that we are trying to elevate the original state of travel blogging to a point where we tap into our existing audiences, tap into the existing curiosities of people on us, on the way that we travel and everything, and to actually use that platform, use that channel to say, you know what, there are actually a lot more topics out there that can be talked about. There could be social issues that we could have really used our help to promote, to reach out to people. And so in a sense, yeah, this is very much for the general public, but also I also believe that this is for the general public that doesn't necessarily know much about travel blogging. So this is one way of actually visually conceptualizing the movement of travel blogging, which is kind of what the movement in the name of the Ripple movement is all about. Not just in the sense of a revolution or anything like that, but more so that it is the movement of travel bloggers in the very same way that it's anthropological. It's about people who are out there seeking new ways of making a living. Age anthropology point of view, this is actually very interesting for me for a very start, and I do believe that a lot of people would be very interested in seeing how this is actually how travel blogging works. It's like saying that everybody's saying travel blogging, or travel writers or journalists, they're living a dream, but precisely what the dream is very much ambiguous. So I believe that this is one way, or at least it's just one way of showing people what this is all about, but what this is more than just people living their lives, living a dream, but pursuing them, pursuing topics, pursuing what makes them.
And the way that you've called it the Ripple movement kind of supposes that or assumes that you see it as a project that will develop and go on, and kind of go through various iterations. But presumably, if it's successful, if people like the idea, if it's easy to understand and to follow, and people do it, what you're hoping to do is create a kind of a pattern for others to follow, so that it's not uncommon to find versions of the Ripple movement as kind of nodes around the travel internet, where different subjects and different people gather to post their content.
Yeah, I mean, in this sense, if you break it down a little bit, there are lots of sort of elements of how travel blogging works and how travel blogging can work in play. So you've got aspects like, for instance, the collaborative travel blogging project, or travel bloggers collaborating on a particular project, which a lot of people are doing extremely well at the moment. You've got the collectives, you've got the groups such as I Ambassador and Navigate Media, all that going on, where it's tapping into the shared audiences of travel bloggers and them working together to augment their reach in order to generate better results. And then the other thing that I've recently just come out of working at, which is the Masla Festivals project, led by and created by Kash Bhattacharya of The Budget Traveller. All of those projects have very much sort of inspired me to believe in a future in collaborative travel blogging projects. And so, this is one way of me demonstrating that this sort of travel blogging collaborative can actually work. And so, yeah, I very much would like to see more of these spring up, because it's a brilliant way of doing it, not just from the point of view of the stats and everything, but it lends a sort of a multi-dimensional perspective about a particular storytelling, a particular, outreach, or a particular campaign, because you're not just talking about one person, you're talking about multiple persons, and having a cross-narrative perspective as well. Sorry, not the cross-narrative perspective, the cross-perspective narrative of storytelling, which is one thing that I do believe that Mike Soden of
Fevered Mutterings.
Fevered Mutterings, I've actually, I spent a lot of time advocating, especially, with his usage of Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Comic Universe as an example. It's a fantastic analogy as well, that you actually have so many travel bloggers out there doing different things, but they often meet up and talk about each other and incorporate each other into the narrative. In essence, it is a very organic way of sharing audiences without them even thinking about it. But people are naturally curious to see, these people, this almost like a separate race of people, or characters in the book meeting up and doing things together, and creating dynamics and drama and everything. So people are naturally very curious to see travel bloggers come together. And
it sounds like it kind of sits in the middle of that, because at the moment what we've got are a number of cooperatives that developed as marketing cooperatives, like iAmbassador and like Navigate, who will go to, for example, a national tourist office and work with them on a particular campaign, and bring to that a whole bunch of bloggers, and we're using the wide description of bloggers. And then equally, there are the other cooperatives that are more kind of blogger-centric, like Matador Networks, who are in effect rather like publishers, and who might also work on campaigns with DMOs. And it sounds rather as if this kind of sits in that kind of grey area in the middle, that it's not actually a marketing cooperative, but it is a publishing cooperative that might well take on campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. In a sense that it is very much a sort of travel bloggers leading their own investigations is very much what they want to do, as opposed to having a task delegated by the brands, the DMOs, the people who would be they would be on their payroll. It's very much what the destinations and the marketers want as well. I mean, there's going to be an element of what aspects of destination or the marketers would want these people to promote. And if we think about it from sort of a more realistic and a more pragmatic way, let's
think about it from a commercial way. I mean, what's the business model? How does it pay for itself, and indeed hopefully even pay some of the bloggers involved?
What we are trying to achieve is that we are trying to find sponsors for the overall project. So you've got the overall of the Ripple movement. So everything that's being put into the administration of it, the design of it, we are at the moment about to hopefully secure the services of a design team, and that's going to be doing all of those things. So far, everything that's been created have basically been generated in my lounge with my own computers and everything. But hopefully, we are going to put something that's a bit more sort of professionally designed per se. Even though that I've got a certain degree of design skills, I don't think that mine, and especially me working alone, I'm going to quite be able to reach sort of like the ambitions and the aspirations we're trying to get to. So the overall of it is one aspect that we would like to find sponsors for. And from the other perspective, from the bloggers themselves or the projecteers, what we would call this kind of like the independent.
I love projecteers. But anyway, go on.
It's funny that I just sort of looked at it and I thought, okay, should we call them projectors or are we going to call them project makers? No way. Jazz it up a little bit. Let's put a trademark next to it and everything. Okay, we're not going to do that. To think that they can just sort of have the independence to go and document their own thing, we should probably give them the independence to find their own ways to source income or find a way to fund it. So if somebody has the capability of fund their own projects through their own means, then that's absolutely fine with us. If they want to find sponsors to basically take care of some of that side of things, then that's absolutely fine with us too. So it's not in terms of just the creative freedom that we're giving them. We're actually saying, okay, you guys can just go and find your own way to do it, and you have our full support. We've got to have an admin team in place that's going to basically help you get your pitch straight and all of that. So in some way, it is independent, as much as the independent project aspect of it spells out, but it's still within the support of not just the admin team, but everybody else. So it is, in a sense, a collective of people, but they are sharing resources and expertise as they go along.
It's very wide-reaching in terms of of subject area and approach and so on. It's not going to be easy to find sponsors that are as broad as that themselves. He said. I mean, obviously, big brands, maybe somebody like Expedia, I suppose you could think of as a large-scale global, interested in global topics, or G Adventures or somebody. But it would also have to have that social edge to it as well, the particularly the social responsibility and responsible travel edge to it, because I can see that quite a lot of the things that you'll be doing will be will have that underlying theme to it. Which actually should bring us to the projecteers themselves. I mean, who else have you got involved? You've mentioned Ninka. You've got Diana Edelman.
Yes, I do. She's one of the co-founders and one of the two of us who actually created the idea in the first place. And we also have a variety of people, such as Raymond Walsh from Man of the Lamb, who's hoping to do something about long weekend escapes. Coming from a Canadian background, that's very much ingrained in his own culture. So he wants to seek out basically how the other cultures and how other countries have the same sort of practice as well. And we also have, let's see, we've got Cherie King, who is the person who's actually doing something about the sign language aspect of it. She would like to go and retrace the origin of sign language throughout its history. And so it's easily one of the most amazing project ideas I've actually heard of out of everybody. I mean, I don't want to be, biased or, I don't want to preface anything like that. But for me, that is something that I found absolutely fascinating. And she's also calling it Talking Hands, which is one of the most awesome project ideas, project names that I've ever heard. So there's that too.
How much will she be able to do in a period of a few months?
I think she's trying to do as much as she can. I mean, the other aspect of it is that the live stage is going to be over a time frame of 4 months. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody will be out for the entire duration of it. What we say to the projecteers is that you guys go out and do your investigations for as long as you need for your investigation.
But this period will be covered live.
Exactly. So somebody might decide that they won't be able to go out until sort of late August or so, and they would head out in late August, and their route will start ticking then, which actually lends the versatility and the different sort of the vibrance of it, especially from the color coding of projecteers' routes point of view, where you won't just see routes going everywhere. You would actually see pinpoints and routes springing up as the live stage goes along. And so it's all about the different dynamics of it.
So there's live and there's also the archive side. I mean, it'll always be there as an archive, so you can go back, well, at any point. I mean, this same time next year, I can go to the ripplemovement.com and find the work that was done during that 4-month period, but also maybe stuff before it and after it as well, for any particular destination, or some destinations.
It's very much sort of like it's the way we kind of see this is it's very much what from a foodie as well. I mean, this is from a food lover's perspective as well. If you look at, say, what now sort of that isn't anymore used to be best restaurant in the world, El Bulli, over in Costa Brava.
Oh, he closed it, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Headed by the legendary Fernando Dria.
Mm.
What he used to do.
Disappointingly, just before I'm going there, I didn't get to Costa Brava, and I'm going this year.
It is very disappointing, isn't it? I mean, I did remember that there was a press trip to Costa Brava not too long ago, and I woke up one day and everybody's been bragging that they're in El Bulli on Twitter. So, even before I finished my morning coffee, I was seeing people taking photos with Fernando Dia on Facebook, which if that wasn't jealousy-inducing, I don't know what is. And so, with their particular model, what they actually do is that they would open a restaurant up during the summer. And then they would close it down during the winter, where they would retire back to sort of their kitchen/lab in Barcelona, and they would start developing new recipes for the next season. And it's very much what I would like to go after. I would want to open the Ripple Movement project for a particular time frame, as I mentioned. So 4 months to start, maybe like 8 months afterwards, and then close it down for a particular period of time, so that the lot of us in the admin team can retire to sort of back into development and start coming up with new ideas for the next season and so forth and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, this is sort of what we're trying to achieve here. So in terms of the different versions too, what we do want to have is that we want to keep them separate, as if they were chapters in a book. So you want to have that the first chapter is distinct from the chapters that are going to follow it. And so what we are planning to do is that we are going to start the Ripple Movement afresh upon a new version. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that everything that's being done is going to be scrapped. It's going to be simply migrated to a subdomain of some sort, or on a separate website where it could be seen in its full sort of manifestation. So that you can get to see the most recent. So, you click the button, you can actually.
So that would be Ripple. Well, the first one would be Ripple 15, and then next year will be Ripple 16, and find them on a.
As we like to call it, the sort of at the moment we're looking at the Ripple Movement 1.0, and the 2.0 and the 3.0.
What's your priority now? Is it to find more people to participate in it? I mean, you're looking for other bloggers, or are you pretty much there now with the first team, as it were?
Very much a bit of both, actually. We're assembling our team of founding members. So at the moment, what we have, all the people who are actually having signed up for the first year would be our founding members. And so at the moment, that's underway. We've had a few more Skype calls and Facebook messaging going on in the background, and that's been going really well. And we've got a few more people who have agreed to jump on, and that process is still going on. At the moment, we are looking at the 15 to 20 projects. I think we're about halfway in terms of people having submitted what we have as a project outline document. And so that for us is like the starting point for having a sort of more consolidated project idea.
And your start date is squishy at the moment.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we've said it's going to be during the summer, and it'll probably start. I think you said. Did you say May? I can't remember now. But there isn't like a firm start date in mind, a target that you're now working towards.
At the moment, no. We want to keep it a bit loose because we do have a lot of things happening in the background, such as the design aspects of it.
Yes, Alistair, squishy.
Yeah. We want to basically not confirm anything until we have a more firm idea about a lot of things. We don't want to confirm things way too prematurely. And so at the moment we are very busy with a lot of the admin side of things as well. So in terms of actually getting the graphics right, getting the map right, and making sure that everything works, and we may even be launching a beta of some sort that might be a separate thing altogether, but it's very much in the think tank at the moment. So more details to come. But one thing I can guarantee is that there will be different things popping up all the time from now till the start of what we call the live stage. For instance, the developers blog is developed for that particular reason. We want to keep everybody constantly updated about the things that are happening in the background, and a lot of the theories and hypotheses and conjectures that are happening, not just in sort of within the Ripple movement itself, but with everybody's own research process leading up to them setting foot out of their threshold and actually start their documentation and their investigation. So that's that going on. The other thing that we do have happening right now is that we are in the process of looking for sponsors. So one thing that I actually neglected to mention earlier, apart from the sort of the overall sponsor, the independent sponsor, is that we actually have thought about setting up a tier in the middle, what we would actually call the divisional sponsor. It's one way of bridging the two, really, and the same way that you said that a lot of the projects are quite disconnected in that they have very different topics or they're very different in nature. I think a few of them actually have, you know, a lot of connective tissues involved, actually. I mean, to think on top of my head, we actually have about 3 food projects, for instance, or 3 projects that have got food in mind. I'm actually going to be going out and do a food anthropology documentation about different cuisines. At the moment, I'm thinking about Europe, but I might actually even expand beyond that, where I'm just going to be talking about the ingredients themselves, the ingredients of different cuisines and where they actually come from. So if you think about, you know, stuff like tomato, you think about potatoes, you very much sort of find them synonymous with the Spanish cuisine, where, you know, I've just been at yesterday. But they've actually come from a new world. I mean, they weren't actually in Europe or consumed by Europeans until the Europeans discovered South America, and that was all being imported. And the same with a lot of things like spices, for instance, you know, cooking techniques and different things like that. That's one thing that I very much want to document.
So you can lump those things together and then have a sponsor that covers those individual bits of content.
I would say that's one way of approaching it. So I was just about to mention that we also have Fiona Barrows, who is actually in Southeast Asia right now, and she will be starting her project about street food. So she's very much interested in documenting sort of the faces behind street food. So she's going to be spending quite a bit of time getting to know the street food vendors and probably shadow them a little bit and actually getting to know them, their family and the situation and everything. So in terms of that, the connective tissue would say, you know, be food in general. But I would say that this divisional sponsor idea would actually be more appropriate for destinations, for instance, because, you know, in some sense, the connective tissue would be that a particular region or a particular country or city would be visited not by just one project here, but several projects here. So if there's any way that a destination or DMO can kind of envision them basically being the patron of not just one project or not just one subject, but multiple subjects, and in that way showcase the diversity of the number of things that a particular destination can encompass, to visitors, then I certainly, for one, if I'm going to put my marketer's hat on, would think that it's a fantastic opportunity for people to say, you know what, I would like to, you know, be looking after 3 to 5 projects at the same time, and in essence, being able to do all that. And also in the sense of the visual conceptualization of it, if you see multiple lines running through a country or a particular region, you would naturally be curious enough to find out about the place, because, you know, why would all these people visit it? What's so good about it? And so I would say that divisional sponsorship is specifically geared towards that purpose.
Okay. Okay, well, listen, we should say that if you go to the Ripple Movement, all one word, theripplemovement.com, you'll find there, actually not very much because it's a kind of a landing page, but you will see a link to what Dylan just mentioned, the developer blog. And I think that's probably where you get the best idea of what's going on and how it is indeed developing. Dylan, you very definitely should show up here again next week, same time, same place, not least because I will have Austin, I've forgotten his other name now, I'm doing an Ed Balls, I've forgotten his other name, but he will, he's the spokesman for the Expo in Milan, which this year opens in the summer, runs through to October, and is all about food and exactly what you were talking about. And in fact, you could do your whole research there at the pavilions, because there are 88 countries being represented, and they'll all be showcasing the things, their strengths, their historical strengths in food, and also their developments and techniques for improving food, because the big drive is to find a way of feeding a growing global population, particularly while we've got this imbalance between half the world starving and the other half getting obese. So that is the determined thread of Expo, and it's going to be a fascinating summer period in Milan for everybody, not just food enthusiasts and not just academics, but for families and everything else. It's going to be the biggest restaurant in the world for a start, and it's going to be it's pretty spectacular. So we'll be talking about that next week, and Dylan, like I say, you'd be very welcome to pop along to that one if you want to, and that'll be at the same time, same place. I'll pop stuff up on the travelcoffeebreak.com blog, and also on the G Plus page as well, all about that. So look forward to it then. Dylan,
add one more thing, Alistair.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody watching would be curious enough to ask anything about the Ripple movement, feel free to drop me a line via email. I can be reached at admin@theripplemovement.com. And as Alistair said, there are things happening all the time on the developers blog, and a lot of updates as it comes along. And so do please check it out. And we have our social media channels that are also live and constantly ticking, so you'll be able to find them on the website. And if any brands or destinations out there who would potentially be curious to find out more about this, please do get in touch. Once again, it's admin@theripplemovement.com, and I'll be more than happy to speak to you and send over my media kit for the Ripple Movement project.
Okay, excellent. Good. On that note, let's call it a day there, and see you back here next week at the usual time. Bye for now.